a snack or coffee or something, just please get up and go over and grab it quietly. We're going to get rolling. And tonight's guest presenter didn't read the propagator, catch any emails, or look at the website, or even look or hear of anything. Welcome tonight. Louder.
Well, we got a mic there if you want to use it.
Behind you.
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
No. Thank you.
No. Use the mic. No.
I can talk loud enough.
Use the mic.
That's my middle name. I want to welcome Robert MacHale tonight as our guest speaker. He's going to talk to you about satellite communications, I'm guessing with repeaters and the ISS station and various other things, and some of the gizmos and gadgets that you do that with. So I'm going to hand it over to the expert to talk about that. Please give Robert a nice welcome.
So welcome everybody, I'm Rob. I've met some of you, and I know a handful have come out to my clubhouse when the space station's visible and we have barbecues and stuff, and we're going to do that again this summer. So I'll extend an open invitation to everyone here tonight to come. But for those of you who've been before, Darrell has been before, Ron, and Tony. I'm probably going to see a couple other people come out, but it's pretty fun. I think it's fun. Anyway, so the presentation for tonight is pivoting on a presentation I gave last year at the DX convention up in Visalia. Has anybody been to that before? So the gist of it is that it works like this. The Northern California clubs and the Southern California clubs get together in Visalia once a year. The content is controlled every other year. This year was controlled by the Northern clubs, and last year was controlled by the Southern clubs. Well, anyway, I presented this topic there. And since then, I've had a chance to present it at the LA Radio Club this January. And then tonight, this is my third time to present the material. So you'd think I'd be an expert on it, right? Present it well, but that might not be the case. But we'll see how this goes. So the topic is space communicator contacting the ISS, PSAT, and the PCSAT via satellite APRS on FM 145, 825. And I'll get into the details of that. So a little bit about me. I've actually missed 6 months of this club because I accepted a teaching thing at UCR that committed my time Monday night, Wednesday night, and Saturdays. And this is the first class ended last week. This is the first Monday I've had free, so glad to be here. I've actually wanted to do this presentation for quite a while. It's been, I've been in the queue for about a year, so this is really exciting for me. So anyway, that's me, KE6BLR. You mentioned this, the open house thing. What do you call it? The
Sora Fair.
Sora Fair. So this is Darrell and I. We were over here last year at the Sora Fair and got to demo the basic idea. It hasn't changed much. It's basically the same equipment and an Azel motor. And we had a lot of fun. So I encourage everybody to come back and even present a topic. Bob's been out to barbecue as well. So Bob does the Aries contacts where the kids get to talk to the space station. And Darrell and I helped out. We pulled cables. We didn't do anything hard. We pulled cables to set up for Menendez Elementary this last.
Much appreciated.
Much appreciated. We had fun. And then Richard Stember presented here a little while. I don't think he's here tonight, but he runs the science heads with the high altitude balloons. And I know Tony's been out to that. A handful of you guys have been out to that. I know that the drone camera folks are from here that help him with that. But so this is Tony, and I was just watching Richard work. But they do APRS on the balloon, which is the same APRS that we do on the satellite. So there's an overlap there, and I'll explain that. The barbecue. So this summer does not cooperate with the ISS coming in on a weekend. It's like every Monday until October. It's on a Saturday. So we're going to aim for a barbecue in October. I'll let everybody know more about that. You guys are all welcome to come out. So anyway, just in a nutshell, what I'm going to be presenting tonight is the basics of making contact with the satellite at the space station. And this is really all you have to have to get started. It's just a tripod and an arrow antenna, or a Yagi antenna. And in a minute, I'm going to show you cheapest version is just using coat hangers and wood, right? Some of you guys have done the tape measure one too, right? You guys have tried the tape measure version? So the basic idea is that whether it's the ISS, the PSAT, in the orbital path, it kind of does these serpentine things, and you've probably seen these when you look at NASA's screens. And you kind of, when I first looked at this, I thought, why on earth do satellites turn left and then turn right and burn all this energy, right? So it turns out they're going in a straight line, typically like on a 45-degree angle, and the Earth is spinning inside that, right? Which then, if you map it to the Earth, it ends up acting like this. Those dots happen to be the 1-minute beacon locations of the satellite predictions. The red ones were the only packets that got picked up on that path. So we're going to talk about this scenario where you start out doing APRS satellite, and you broadcast and you successfully make contact with the satellite, yet no ground station picks up to verify that that happened. And we'll talk about why that is and what the remedy is. This shows a picture of 24-hour activity on the satellite, where the red dots are the iGate, the ground stations that can pick up the signals that actually record to the internet, so you have a third party validate that you made contact with the thing. And then the blue is just where the satellite was when the packet happened. And you can actually kind of see, if you look really closely, you can actually see the path. See how these are kind of all in a line? You can kind of see that the path of most things come from the west, and they'll either come from Australia up or from Alaska down, and they typically cross about 4 times a day. So you'll see if something pass overhead, you wait 90 minutes, you get the second pass of that same thing, just slightly offset. You wait 12 hours, and the same thing happens, but from the other direction. So there's an alternating between coming from Australia twice, wait 12 hours, coming from Alaska twice, and then wait 12 hours. That's kind of a rough description of it all. All right, so the slides will be available to download, so don't worry about jotting down numbers or things like that. We'll pass out a URL that you can download stuff, but this is the basic idea of what we're going to try to cover. Names of the satellites, what equipment that we might look at, what's a packet life cycle, some websites you can go to, how to track with Heavens Above out, how to write your own code with Python, and then just the idea of what if you wanted to make an ASL that was portable, how that would look. All right, so let me funnel down the whole universe of this topic and just show you the sliver that I want to focus on. So ham radio has all these bands, right? So the only bands that I'm going to talk about are actually not even 2, just 1 band, just a 2-meter band. There's 440 is also used, but not for this. So 2 meter and 1 frequency. FM 145.825 for up and down. So that kind of narrows down the whole spectrum of topics, and also licenses. It just requires technician. Okay, so just a technician license. Power requirements, 5 watts should be plenty. The only time it's not plenty is when 5 people are all trying to make contact with the same satellite. Unfortunately, the most powerful signal will capture, right, and win. So that might be the only time that 5 isn't enough. But I would just stick with 5. 5 is fine. Anyway, so the 5 satellites that are primarily in use for this: the space station, the PSAT, AISat from India, and the newest one, PSAT-2, that just launched from one of the recent Falcon Heavy launches. Having said that, so I've narrowed down the topic to FM 2 meter. Another thing I want to narrow it down to is it's digital data, not voice. So I've honestly never done voice on satellite. And this sounds awful, I'm sure. But the problem is that I don't know what to say. I'm outside of speaking and teaching, I'm really pretty quiet. I don't know, I don't know what to say. So having said that, APRS is essentially an SMS text message, like on your phone, SMS text message, that goes over the ham radio. And we call it APRS. APRS is running off of the AX.25 TNC model, but it's been changed to not be like an open session, but just simplified into little packets. Anyway, the most common packet is I am here, and here's my GPS location. Done. All right, that's pretty common, and I think that's why I like it, because I can confirm that it worked without having to think of something to say. So, all right, so some of the basics. In ham radio, there's this concept of antenna polarization, right? Is it a big deal or not a big deal?
Line of sight is very deal, not line of sight it isn't.
Interesting, okay. So in theory, if you have, let's do the basics. So your car radio is a vertical, right? Your ham radio voice is usually a vertical. Television, usually horizontal, right? So it just turns out that horizontal and vertical signals tend to not interfere. And if you have the wrong polarization, it's like turning the volume down by like half, right? So there is a question if you're looking and aiming at something that's line of sight, and that line of sight could be 2,000 miles, but space station is 250 miles up, but if you go out, you can reach it at 5 degrees on the horizon. So you're looking at like 2,000 kilometers, but I don't know the exact number. Having said that, it's really interesting to note what is the polarization of the antenna on the space station, and here's the answer. It turns out that, question? It turns out that on the front of the space station on the right, there's this European module, and I'll show you a picture of this in a second. This is it, but looking from the bottom. And there are two antennas on there, this guy and this guy. The one going down is the one that we use for data, packet data on the space station, which is not to be confused with the antenna that Bob would use for voice, which is on a different module, a different orientation. But this is just the packet one. This one actually is used for tracking the ships, all the ships in the world. Since the space station passes over everywhere, they actually, and the ships aren't moving that fast, there's actually a dedicated system that runs on like an APRS network on a specific channel that just tracks where are all the ships in the world. But that's what this one's used for. But anyway, an astronaut had to climb out onto the outside of the space station and attach this antenna to a handle, and that's what we have. Outside the space station, here's just a couple samples of satellites. The PC-SAT, built by the students at the Naval Academy. And then another one, the Part1 sat, which is this guy over on the right, which if you look at the proportion of the size, the satellites now are getting to be pretty small. Like a 2 liter Coke bottle. It's super small. Alright. AI sat, let me just throw a curveball on this one. India had this great idea. They said they're launching this commercial satellite. Payload had three stages on the rocket, right? Bottom one falls off, goes a little farther, the second one falls off, and the third stage takes it to its final destination in orbit. But when it releases the satellite, that third stage is just space junk. It's just sitting out there. So the guys in India, AMSAT, said, hey, you know what? It has a battery, a solar panel, and an antenna. When you guys are done with your payload, can we then occupy it for an amateur radio satellite? And that's AISAT, and it works. It's kind of a neat idea. So it's way out there, I forget the actual orbit, the distance, but it inherited the solar panel, battery, antenna, and the chassis to live in. I thought that was pretty cool. All right, and then PSAT-2 just launched, and it's a really active satellite. I'll show you that in just a second. I'll show you the live screen. Okay, so what kind of equipment? So remember I mentioned the idea of using a coat hanger? So this is my dad, N6DM. He's an extra. He knows way more about radio than I do. But he's really kind of clever and practical. Out of wood and 3 coat hangers. And that performance on that guy compares consistently with the commercial ones. So buying a commercial one's not necessary, it's not required, but it's helpful. He runs an iGate ground station off of an 8-meter that looks like that. And to get an 8-meter to work with satellite, okay, imagine an 8-meter is the dumbest antenna ever, and it's really dull. So what's required is to attach it to a really good preamp. So he runs a 20 decibel preamp on the 8-meter to get it to work well. And it works really, really well. It picks up at 5 degrees out to the vertical. So if you get it dialed in right, it can really, really work well. And then the other options are the arrow, which I have 2 of. I have the 3-element and the 4-element. The benefit to the 4-element, you get a little more gain, but you have to point it more accurately. So there's the 3-element, the 4-element, and the one up on top is the ELK logarithmic. They're all about the same. The ELK is kind of cool. It's twice as expensive, but it's kind of cool. But it's not like double cool. It's like 10% more cool. So there's that. So a couple of years ago, I got into the idea of building the Azel. So this is me up at Gillerin. You know when you go to Gillerin, there's the batting cages. If you take that hike down the trail, this is that spot. And I thought it was really cool because you got that neat panorama. You've got over 180 degrees panorama. Seems like a great idea for satellite. However, who manages the repeaters for the club? So one of the problems about repeaters is they're typically on top of a mountain and also close to other stuff. And so you end up having this really bad interference problem. So although you have the benefit of being high, you end up hearing too much. So it turns out that the best, it turns out that the most optimal location to do satellite is in a bowl. And that bowl, whether you're in a country where it could be trees, out far away. For me, over here where I'm at, there's an open space and I'm kind of in a bowl. For my dad, he's actually in just a residential area that has a wood fence. And he puts the EVB below the fence line. So he actually blocks all the horizontal noise through that wood fence. And then you can only get like 5 degrees over the fence. So it's kind of it seems upside down that you would want your antenna to be low and in a bowl. But it's quieter. And you really, turns out that transmitting to a satellite is easy. Hearing the satellite is hard. So you want to design your whole system around receiving, knowing that you can always add more power to transmit, even if you have a mediocre antenna. You can always add more power. All right, so back to the polarization question. I asked Frank Dowler, so he's the APRS coordinator, and he's the one that pointed me to that antenna because nowhere in any documentation could I find that. Couldn't Google it. But anyway, you know the answer now. It's a vertical, it's sitting under the European module, but that's what he said. That's the antenna that goes straight down. Bob Reniga is an interesting guy. He invented the APRS protocol many years ago. And if I remember right, there were two use cases originally. One was sailing and keeping track of where the sailboats were during a race. And the other one was this countryside horse racing, where they wanted to keep track of where everything was. And so this was kind of the genesis of APRS, Automatic Position Reporting System. That's where it was like birthed. But now it's used for all kinds of stuff, including just sending text messages. But its primary objective was just a beacon and GPS to keep track of things. One thing he points out in this graph, and I hear the question often about when you build an Azel motor, can your Azel motor go straight up and over, or does it have to go and like turn around and go like that for the 90-degree pass? Right? Everyone wants to be prepared for the 90-degree pass. This happens like once a year for 1 minute. It's not even worth trying. And it's not even worth. It's not even worth. What am I trying to say? It's not even worth the effort to accommodate that scenario, because 99% of the time your pass is going to be below 80 degrees, probably below 70 degrees. But the whole point here is that 95% of all passes are below 45 degrees. And so one of the arguments is that why not just park your antenna at 15 degrees and only have the azimuth moved? It's a good question, because that's probably a more practical solution. So, but anyway, it's kind of fun to watch it have both as and L. It's kind of neat just to see it. Anyway, the antenna on this space station, it actually comes delivered like this, and then it fans out and opens up, and then they attach it to the handrail. And then, again, this is another picture. It's this guy right here. That one's the ship one. So when you're looking at the space station, here's the front, and the antenna is literally on the bottom, sticking out right there. That's the one that we're connecting with. pretty much any radio will work. The better one, the problem with the valve thing is it's not the most sensitive receiver. So there's a lot to be gained by having a nice receiver, the ICOM or the Yaesu or the Kenwoods. So anybody old enough to remember AOL? Got mail. So remember the modem, the dial-up and the screeching? Okay, so that screeching, if you go back far enough, was 1200 baud. And then it went to 9600 baud, and then it went up. But 1200 baud, it's called Bell 102 or 103, whatever.
202.
202, okay.
103 was the 300 baud.
Right. Thank you. Okay, so that is what's running AX.25 at 1200 baud, which is what's running this. So in essence, when we say you need a TNC to do this, you really need a 1200 baud modem. We call it a terminal node controller because it's different, but it's just a modem. And the idea is that the modem will create audible sounds that get pushed through the FM frequency to do this back and forth. And the one I've really come to love is this mobile link. It's really just an Arduino with the Bluetooth, but it's really small and you can attach to the back of your valve thing or any radio. And the thing I like about it with the ASL is as the thing is moving around, my ICOM radio is attached to the top, to the antenna. There's no tangling to happen because the Bluetooth is the thing that's coming over to the box over here. So you see what I'm saying? You know, when you have typically when you have like a big tower and you can only turn it at 360-ish degrees because the cable starts twisting, right? So you typically, a Yaesu ASL will go a certain distance apart, and if it needs to, it'll actually whip around and continue from the other side, right? Because it doesn't want to twist that cable into a bind. So the neat thing about having Bluetooth for that modem is that it can just wirelessly jump over to here. But other than that, I've come to learn that it's a good idea to avoid wireless in general around this project because my version 1 project was running the latest and greatest Bluetooth. It's called Bluetooth BLE 4.0, low power. So it turns out when you click the mic with like 25 watts or 35 watts, it's not the same frequency as the Bluetooth, but it stuns the Bluetooth receiver and it like shuts it down for like a whole minute. So they're not really that compatible. The mobile link here is using the older version of Bluetooth that isn't low power and it's not quite as sensitive, so it doesn't seem to interfere. But anyway, there's that. The most affordable way to do this though is to grab the valve thing and this cable and plug the cable into your Android phone, and your Android sound card can be a modem. So you can actually run this whole thing on, what's the valve thing on Amazon now?
$25.
Yep. $25. So $25 plus this cable, call it 20, gets you in the game. So for $45, you're in the APRS world. Yeah. Not a bad way to start. And then there's this $5 app called APRS Droid that runs on your Android. All right, so there's that. So now let's jump beyond the radio stuff and just talk about APRS packets and how they're different from everything else. So let's say that you're using that APRS Droid software, and so imagine that APRS is essentially a text message like SMS on your phone, right? You have an SMS app on your phone, and you type in a phone number as a destination, and then your message, right? So how's that similar and how's that different from doing APRS with satellites or with the space station? And here's how it works. So you type in a message, hello world, into your APRS Droid software. You pre-program before the pass the name of the satellite. And ARES is a saved word that means any of them. If any of those are listening, it will hook it. Else you put the specific address. RS0ISS is the space station. W380-1 is the PCSat, and PSAT is the PSAT. So if you want to target one, you could, and you put that there, or you just put ARES, and then they're all listening for that, and they'll hook it. The second thing is that your call sign gets pre-appended to the message. So the raw over-the-wire message that you thought was hello world has a payload that includes your call sign, a device number, device number, because you might have many devices that have APRS support, so you put a device number. where you're sending it and then the message. Now, in this case, we have repeaters that will repeat your voice, and then slightly different in that your uplink and your outlink are in parallel. What you're actually trying to do on the satellites is hit the digipeater. And when you hit the digipeater, it parses your message, waits about 10 milliseconds, and then rebroadcasts it to everybody that can hear it on the same band, which is kind of neat. So one radio, one channel, but it's in serial. It's like boom, boom, really fast, boom, boom.
So you're talking about the output from the satellite hits the digipeater on Earth?
So, good question. So the radio sends the signal up to the digipeater. The digipeater digests that message
Digipeater.
on the satellite or the space station. And the space station right now is using a Kenwood 710, I think, that has APRS built into it. It's a mobile, right? So it'll digest that message. It'll wait 10 or 100 milliseconds, and then just regurgitate it back down to the Earth. And then everyone in that larger area footprint is going to hear that message. So that's where your message could simply be, hello, I'm here, here's my location, GPS, or it can be targeted to another call sign. So let me back up, there's going to be 3 steps to this, but on this first step, this is your message, hello world. The software that you're using, whether it's the APRS Droid on your phone, or the Yaesu, or the Kenwood, it puts a 6-digit call sign sized marketing brand into the message, which means that everyone in the world will know you transmitted through APRS Droid or a Yaesu model something something or a Kenwood model something something. So this is what actually gets sent over the wire up. You thought it was hello world, but ultimately this is what actually gets sent up. Then, if success happens, the digipeater on the space station will digest that and send it back with a star that says, I'm the one that rebroadcast the message. Now, when my dad got started, we knew zero. This started in April 2017. We were driving home from the DX convention, and we thought, you know what, we don't know anything about satellite. Let's figure this out. We thought, this is the newbie in us, that a star meant any of the device numbers hosted by the space station, because maybe the space station has a -1 or a -2, right? It's a wildcard like DOS. It's a DOS wildcard, right? Or Linux. It turns out that the wildcard theory is not even related. It has nothing to do with it. It has everything to do with the fact that it's been processed by the digipeater. So we thought we should add the star ourselves. So we put the star, and we set it up there. Well, the problem is that the digipeater looks at it and says, oh, this has already been handled. I don't need to do anything. Someone else has already done it, which means it does not come back down. So successful contact, unsuccessful digibeat back to the Earth. So I'm sure that we've tried every silly, wrong thing that we could have tried. But having tried all those wrong things, we kind of know how to make it work pretty consistently. So now it gets down to the ground station that picks it up and then permanently records it on the internet so that you can have a third-party verification that it actually worked. And that's how this next step happens. So my dad in Temecula, for example, has a ground station set up 24/7 listening for satellite packets. And when he hears the packet, his device will add his call sign with the QAR in front of it. And then that gets sent over the internet wire, over the internet connection at his home internet provider, to the central server called APRS IS for internet sharing or internet service. And that's how it ends up on websites. So there's many websites that will publish the activity of satellite traffic, and this is how it gets there, because somebody's ground station picks it up and then puts it out there. Now, problem, when we first started, there were no iGate ground stations between Denver and here, which meant that every time we made successful contact with the space station over the coastline, it never bounced back to somebody's ground station to authenticate that it happened. We might have heard it locally on a radio, but it never hit it's called an iGate or a SAT-gate, that then permanently recorded on the internet. And that's what your goal is. You ultimately want to be able to to see it show up on the shared page so that everybody can like validate that it worked, right? The other thing is when you're starting out is that if your receiver isn't that sensitive, you might not even hear your own packets. So at least you can go to see, did somebody else hear my packet, and then they post it on the internet, and then that proves that it all worked. Does that make sense? Anyway, so the fact that back in 2018 there were no local ground stations, he got interested in setting up his own, and he's been running that for the last year or so. And he's actually like #1 or #2 in the world as far as quantity of packets received. He's really dialed everything in to be really, really good. There's this one thing that's, I'm going to say it. It's probably not going to make sense when I say it the first time, because when I heard it, I didn't get it. It took me 3 months to comprehend this problem. It seemed so simple, I thought, no, this can't be true. But so a funny thing happens if my dad's neighbor, he has a neighbor 25 miles away that's into APRS satellite also, and together they hit the satellite, right? If my dad hears the signal horizontally, it will grab that and publish that to the internet before the star gets put on there. Which doesn't seem that bad, because you think, well, you'll get two, right? You'll get one local packet recorded, and then you'll get the one from the satellite, and you can prove that two people heard it. No. There's a hyperactive deduping logic in the APRS network that says you cannot have one packet coming in from many sources recorded. They get thrown out, like into the vapor. So what was happening was that my dad's neighbor would broadcast, my dad would hear him, he would instantly record it, and it would go into the personal bucket of that person, but never show up on the satellite page because it wasn't a true satellite contact. And the satellite contact version, that packet, would be discarded. So if that doesn't make sense, it took me too long to comprehend that. So we ended up over time, we built our own proxy server that filters the local packets, that recognizes that if it doesn't have a star from the satellite, we don't want it. We discard it at that point, and then we forward the satellite traffic out. And so we've got that system running. My dad's running it. The guy in Denver, WARP is also running it. And a couple of guys in the Midwest and the East Coast use it as well. But it solves that problem of if your neighbor is doing packet, and you, as a ground station, hear them first, you don't want to record that packet because they'll actually, anyway, it causes interesting emotions. Yeah.
So your dad station was picking up the neighbor's rebroadcast?
Original broadcast.
So
His original broadcast before when he got it.
His dad. Got it.
So one signal was going broad, right?
Yeah.
It hit him before it hit the space station.
Yeah.
So he went on the internet immediately into the space station. We're only talking 100 milliseconds. We're not talking
Yeah.
a long time. We're talking 100 milliseconds. This happens fast.
But yeah, it wouldn't have a star on it.
But it wouldn't have a star on it. And yeah, you'd be amazed at how passionate people feel about that. So that's how it works. So at the end of the day, so let me just show you real quick what that looks like on the internet. So this is our club website, and this is what packets look like. And this is the packet, this is the UTC time, and that's how long ago it happened. On some of them, I'm starting to calculate the as-L of the ground station at the time of the packet was picked up, like this guy right here. See the receive elevation? 66 degrees. So for the PSAT-1, all the math is in there. Let's see if we can see any. Not many of them. I'm going to start adding the other satellites. Here's one that was at 19 degrees. The fun ones are when you see someone that picked up a signal at 1 degree. That's pretty fun. But it happens. Also, let's see. So This LC column is actually, I just want to show you this really quick. So the LC column is my antenna picking up beacons from the handheld. So the handheld is broadcasting, it's getting picked up here, and then this guy is my homemade ground station running on Arduino that does the forwarding to the internet. So if you come by APRS, I'll explain that one, but it actually has a Bluetooth chip that's connected to the mobile link Bluetooth, and it's happening right now. So like if I broadcast, let's see if I can do this. I wish I could project what's on my handheld, but it's basically, so when that happened, it hit that, and then within time it'll show up here on the top on the LC, but it doesn't usually show up right away. Oh, there it is right there. You see my KE6BLR. So my Yaesu is my device number 3. You see this little thing right here? That's the Yaesu branding of the device that transmitted. So you can pretty much know what equipment people have when they get this to work. I'm trying to connect to the space station, but I didn't get a star. So did I really hit the space station? No. KE6BLR 50. 50 is the device. 50 is the number I assigned to the device that runs that. And I'm telling the system to send a message targeted to KE6BLR1, so another device. I'm trying to send a message. And that's it. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's just like an SMS message. The 2 colons, I'll point this out. Whenever you see 2 colons, it means what follows is the targeted call sign. If it has 1 colon, it's just a general broadcast, hello world, I'm to anybody. But whenever you see the 2 colons, it's actually targeted a specific user. All right, so that's that. A couple of websites to visit. The one that we have, it has some